Today I am dealing with the posture and posture regulating reflexes. Now I have shifted from the distal muscles to the axial muscles. Muscles can only perform if the person provides a stable posture or a stable equilibrium or a stability for those distal muscle actions. And this stability is brought about by the axial group of muscles. That is what you see here. He is throwing that javelin, and he is giving all the things, all the impetus or momentum to that particular javelin stick, and but he has to have the posture associated with that. What is posture? Posture is defined as the attitude assumed by the body either at rest or during the course of muscular activity. I say either at rest means you are sitting in front of your computer or mobile, and when you are sitting in with the computer or mobile, you have adopted some posture, and that is a resting posture you have adopted. Or even somebody may be reclining on their bed and then trying to see this thing. That's again another posture attitude. So the posture is a resultant of a coordinated action of a group of muscles working in tandem or working together to maintain a stability or provide the stable background. That's what the posture is. Posture is essentially a relative position of the body or its parts in reference to egocentric, exocentric, and geocentric coordinate systems. Don't worry about, I will not go into the details of these egocentric, exocentric, and geocentric, but I have just explained them here in the lower panel. What are these coordinate systems? Egocentric is in reference to the various body parts. So that means the position acquired in reference to the various bodily parts. That means the head, the trunk, the limbs, the upper limbs, the left limb, right limb, or whatever the part of the body, that is egocentric. So that means the position acquired. You saw that javelin throwing, he has acquired a position. That means the left side is like this and right side is like this, and that is egocentric. Exocentric is an environment or surroundings. The surrounding is you, that means around. So now if I were to go back to that Neeraj Chopra's picture, so that means his surrounding is the object he has focused is to throw that javelin as far as possible. That was the objective. So that is the environment. He has fixed an environment, and in reference to that, he has attained a certain posture. Then, in addition, the geocentric is in reference to the gravitational forces. Because if you were to perform any action, the gravity always exists. And when the gravity exists, you have to work against the gravity. So that is a geocentric. So these are the three coordinates. Purpose of the posture. The orientation of the body parts depends on the behavioral context, as I have already mentioned about the parts or the environment or the gravity. Egocentric, ecocentric, and the geocentric requirements. Suppose you are standing up in an erect posture. The relative position of the head to the rest of the body is important in maintaining the erect erect posture. Suppose if I were to stand up, my head should be on the top. I cannot tilt it down. The legs should be down. So that is the relative position of the head in reference to the other body parts. Suppose you are sitting in a car or a train or any other moving objects. And when you are sitting in such a thing, even you are sitting there and you are trying to see the or listen to my lecture. So when you are doing that, your relative position of the head to the environment, your environment is a laptop or a mobile, wherein this is important to stabilize your vision. That means seeing the object. So that means you have an object before you, that is seeing the objects. So that means the head position and the visual activity or visual positioning. And then jumping, suppose if somebody is jumping from the height, so then in that case, or diving in a swimming pool, the regulation of a posture with respect to gravity is to maintain the postural equilibrium. And the postural equilibrium has two components, one a static component and the dynamic component. Now, I come back here. What is that postural equilibrium? It can be defined as the state in which all forces acting on the body are balanced so that the body rests in an intended position. That means the position you are trying to make, that means you are there sitting on a chair or whatever. So that means that is the intended position. That is a static equilibrium. You are in equilibrium. Now I am sitting before you. I'm sitting before you in a chair. So this is, I'm in a static equilibrium, in a static state. That means not in a movement. Or is able to progress through the intended movement without losing balance. Suppose even I am trying to move here and there. Say, for example, here with the virtual classes, it is not possible for me to move here and there. But I am sitting in a particular chair. Even I try to move the chair in a particular this thing that is dynamic. Okay, leave aside this example. Suppose a static equilibrium, say for example, when you stand up, you have a static equilibrium. That means a group of muscles, the axial group of muscles, they are activated, they make you to stand in an erect posture. Then you start walking. So when you start walking, your total static equilibrium is imbalanced. So now you will not fall down because of the movement. What happens? You attain another equilibrium. So that equilibrium is a dynamic equilibrium. That means you are lifting one limb and moving it, taking a step ahead. So like that, you exchange the limbs, or the one limb and other limbs, they exchange each other. So during that time, nobody falls down. That is dynamic equilibrium. Okay, this dynamic equilibrium we attain during our growth. Maybe in the first year of life, we start walking. So that means that particular, otherwise in the beginning, it's only static. The baby is lying on the bed. Slowly it starts getting up. That means attains a new status. Then starts getting up and stands with the support. Then after that attempts to move with the support. So that means a static equilibrium now superimposed on that, a change in the posture that is brought by the progress through the particular movement, that is a dynamic equilibrium. So that means the postural equilibrium consists of both static and dynamic components. Static posture, positioning when not in motion, as in sitting, standing, or sleeping, or whatever, achieved by keeping bodily segments aligned and in a fixed position. So that means if I'm sitting, so all the legs are down, the hands are on the side, the head is up, and back is resting. This is brought by the coordination and interaction of various groups of muscles working statically to counter the gravity and other forces. You know, if these things are not working, then what happens? I will fall down. Even it is starting from the muscle tone to have the tone in back muscles and tone in my thigh muscles and the limbs, wherein I take a support from the ground, so on. All those things are important, though they are static. That is a static posture. A dynamic posture is positioning oneself while in motion or in action, just like walking, running, bending, throwing, or fielding, whatever the action we perform. All these actions require some dynamic components, and that is during that time we have to position. So then it provides the base for efficient movement. So that means this dynamic components overcomes the gravitational or geocentric coordinates and also the exocentric coordinates. This is achieved by the muscles and the non-muscular structures. The muscles are the muscles which maintain the gravity or other postures, and non-muscular structures are the bones, the ligaments, and the structures around the joint, so as to adapt to the changing circumstances. Postural control have a different goals under different circumstances. Longitudinal alignment of the whole body to maintain a steady, erect stance. That is one of the goals. That is the longitudinal means a long time alignment or maintaining. Say, for example, I have to sit for long. So that is the erect stance. Remodeling of a posture or a stance in preparation for a voluntary movement. Say, for example, if I were to jump from a height, so then I just mentally be prepared, and I will be planning, or I will be just thinking how I should jump in that particular stepping pad. So that means that also I will make. Or if I want to run, I will just have a remodeling stance to begin to run. So shaping of the body for display purposes. You mean to say that this is what exactly the people do in dance. Dancing is a different sequences, different shapes, different attitudes and attributes. So each dance have a characteristics. So that is also a part of the goals of the posture. That means when you are doing Bharat, you can differentiate from Bharatanatyam to Kuchipudi to the other dance events. So that is one of those purposes, or the Western dancing, ballet dancing, so on and so forth. So that is shaping of the body for display purposes. Or maintenance of the balance. Say, for example, if you happen to see the gymnastics in the Olympics, you see they do a lot of acrobatics and beam or whatever the things movements. Or a person walking on a rope. Maybe it's not there in the Olympics, but in the circus, there is the person is walking. Even sometimes the monkeys and other animals are trained to walk on that. In all, that is a goal, to walk without falling down. In all these goals, the primary aim is to conserve or optimize the energy consumption. So that means our energy consumption is optimized so that the maximum effort or maximum activity is achieved. In case of humans, we have two attributes. Two attributes means we stand like elephant and we act like mice when we are anticipatory motion. I mean to say, when we stand like elephants, that means when you are, that your knee joints, if you stand up, your knee joints, they get locked up and they become straight. They will take all the gravitational the forces, and the legs become static, and they give the structural pillar-like structure, and take up the entire body load to the ground. So now that is when you are in a erect posture. That is, you are like elephant. Elephant is very firm, having a firm foot. The four legs are like pillars. So we have that attribute. That is extended knee. That is. Then we flex the limbs. This is an extensor activity. We flex the limbs in anticipatory motion. So suppose if I were to run, so that means I have making a flexion attitude. You must have seen the Olympic runners trying to be flexed, so trying to make it as bent and trying to push it back. So this is what happens in case of those lower animals like mice, all the time moving. They are worried about the enemies and the dangers or anything. So that is another attribute we have as humans. So the weights here, what happens? The weight supporting limbs are flexed at the start of motion, as happens in case of a sprint running, as in smaller animals, because the smaller animals are always on the move in preparation of an intended movement. This is the posture in humans, how the posture is maintained or regulated. The posture is regulated by series of reflexes operated at various levels in the neuroaxis. Contribution of every segment of the neural axis is important. The segmental level, the medullary level, the midbrain level, and the cortical level. All these things are coordinated in a sequential manner and bring about the posture. We have these posture regulating reflexes and their centers. So now what I have mentioned here segmental, medullary, midbrain, and cortical control of the neuroaxis provide the posture regulating reflexes. Now segmental, what are those segmental reflexes? One is a stretch reflex. The stretch reflex is for tone. The crossed extensor reflex, the positive support reaction, negative support reaction, these are operated at a spinal cord. That means in a spinal animal or in a spinal man, a person who have a transected spinal cord, you can elicit all these responses. So that is segmental. The medullary level have two components. One component is generated by the neck muscles, because if you are looking at the head is separate, trunk is separate, and the head and the trunk are connected by the neck. Now the head has to be regulated. That is not only regulating, the head and the trunk are to be associated for our posture. So that means there are what are called a tonic neck reflexes. That means they are originating from the neck muscles or the proprioceptive impulses from the neck muscles and joints. Then we have another proprioceptive receptor, especially the otolith organs. They are tonic labyrinthine reflexes. They maintain the posture. So these are medullary components. The centers, they are in the medulla. Then we have the midbrain components. Midbrain components, they govern or they maintain the writing reflexes. The writing reflexes. So these are the writing reflexes here. The neck writing reflexes, labyrinthine writing reflexes, the body writing reflexes, the limb writing reflexes, and the optic writing reflexes. Leaving aside these optic writing reflexes utilize visual cues. All these neck, labyrinthine, body writing reflexes, limb writing reflexes, they have a center in the midbrain. Say, for example, though they originate from the limb or from the labyrinthine or from the neck muscles, so they reach to the midbrain, and from the midbrain, they will come back and regulate the writing. Then what is this writing? Writing is positioning of the head and body in space. positioning of the head and body in space as expected. So that means if you throw somebody, so the head rides up on the body, the head comes up and then body becomes down. So this is the type of positioning we have. This is achieved by the number of writing reflexes. You might have seen the infant when born, it is not having any writing reflexes or any of these writing reflexes. The neck is, or head and trunk are not connected at all, as though they are not connected. Head falls by itself, the body or the trunk falls by itself. Though neck is there, it's not able to regulate. Slowly, the child, maybe by the end of 3 months or so, it starts developing these writing reflexes. It tries to hold the head up, and those are the type of writing reflexes. So these are, I would explain them. So they have a center in the midbrain. And only the visual writing reflex or optic writing reflex has a center in the cerebral cortex. Then we have a cortical reflexes. These cortical reflexes are a placing reaction and hopping reaction. The placing reaction, we try to place ourselves on a platform or on a particular thing by visual cues and the vestibular cues or labyrinthine cues and other proprioceptive cues, and that is one aspect. Say, for example, if you are moving in a dark, what happens? You don't find anything and you just go to the stair. When you go to the stair, there are rails made. And these rails, when you touch the rails, you suddenly get the cues for that. So that is where you make the placing reaction. So you tries to place. Then another cues what you get, you drag your foot in such a way that you come to the edge of the steps, or then when you touch the edge, then you know that this is it. And once you are placed one step up, so that means you know the distance, or it is dark and you are not having any visual cues. In that case also, it is the proprioceptive inputs from the limbs, from upper extremity or lower extremity, they will make the placing reaction. The hopping reaction, a sudden push to the lateral side, you just come back to the normal position. That is a hopping reaction. These are some of the posture regulating reflexes I have tabulated for you. Okay, I will consider these things very quickly, especially the segmental ones. I've already dealt you in detail in spinal reflexes. So I will just talk about them. We have the first one is the stretch reflex. The stretch reflex, maybe I come back here. This is the stretch reflex. You know that the stretch reflex is the reflex which is elicited by the action or by activating the muscle spindle. Now, what is the first? There will be, this is what I have mentioned in the stretch reflex, where you have stretched the muscle. We have stretched the intrafusal fiber by tapping. That is the first response, a tap on the tendon. Then it stretches the intrafusal fiber, and that the stretching of the intrafusal fiber carries signals to the spinal cord. That means it stimulates these receptors. These intrafusal fibers are nothing but receptors, or what are called muscle spindles. The impulses are carried through the group 1A afferents, and they will reach to the spinal cord, make a synaptic contact with the alpha motor neurons, supplying the muscle. This is the muscle quadriceps here, and that would make the muscle to contract. So I have made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 is the stimulus, 2 is the receptor activation, 3 is the afferent. Afferent is group 1A, and 4th is the synapse, that is the center. 5th one is the alpha motor neuron, and 6th is the quadriceps muscle that contracts. So that is the stretch reflex. And this stretch reflex here, in reference to posture, is the tone. It is the tone. And this tone is not operated by this way. This tone is operated from the descending inputs coming from the gamma motor neurons. We have gamma motor neurons here. And this gamma motor neuron supplies to these muscle spindles. And when these gamma motor neurons are activated, this is as good as being stretched. And once it is activated, that increases the 1A activity. And from 1A activity, so it will activate the alpha motor neuron. So that means I started with a gamma motor neuron, gamma, 1A, and alpha action. That is the muscle tone. That is an important, muscle tone is an important aspect for the posture. That is the basic unit for the posture. Without muscle tone, you cannot have any posture which can be achieved. Okay. Then similarly, we have when it is happening in the stretch reflex here, you can just see that the same fiber, group 1A fiber, have internuncial contraction connection, that is the interneuron. It gives a collateral to the interneuron, and this interneuron supplies to the antagonist group of muscle. Okay, so this is an inhibitory interneuron, and it inhibits the antagonist group of muscle so that this quadriceps muscle can contract, the biceps femoris relaxes, so that effective movement of the knee joint can be achieved. So that is the reciprocal inhibition. Just to give you idea about the reciprocal inhibition, because to achieve this contraction, you need to have antagonist inhibition, antagonistic group of muscle inhibition. Now you come back here. I have dealt with the stretch reflex. This is the stimuli is the stretch or the stretch on the muscle spindle, and the results in the muscle contraction, and the receptor is in the intrafusal fiber or the muscle spindle. The center is the spinal cord. Then we look into the crossed extensor reflex. Now here is the crossed extensor reflex. I have mentioned about it. It is in response to a noxious stimuli. Noxious stimulus. Here is the noxious stimulus. When it is applied to the limb, the response includes flexion and withdrawal of that limb. So when this is hitting, this is withdrawn because of the pain. So it activates the flexor reflex afferents. So these pain fibers go there, and these flexor reflex afferents that would inhibit this, so that there is no contraction. This relaxes. This is an inhibitory signal, and at the same time, it excites the opposite groups. This green one is the excitatory thing. It excites because since it is inhibiting, this is reciprocally connected. It excites this muscle so that the biceps contracts and other group of muscles contract, so that you withdraw the limb from the site of injury. So that is this thing. Okay, that is about withdrawal of the thing from this. Suppose if this limb does not support, think that this also contracts like this. What it may happen? This is bent here, and this is also bent. You will fall down. Certainly you think about that. So this is bent here, you are withdrawing, you are also withdrawing, you will fall down. No, it does not happen. Natural response is that this gives a supportive pillar-like structure, and this supportive pillar-like structure can be provided by this crossed extensor reflex. What happens? The same response, see this the noxious stimulus going through these flexor reflex afferents, the pain fibers, and having a contact with the excitatory contraction with the opposite group of muscles. Here it is the quadriceps. Here it is relaxed. Then now the quadriceps contracts. It is an extensor muscle, and that provides a straight. The knee joint becomes straight and extended, and that will give a support. that will give a support, and even other extensors of the limb are activated, and so that you will give a firm support, so that it gives a stability, so that you will not fall down. So that is why the crossed extensor reflex become an important aspect for the posture. You know what I'm talking. Suppose if both are bent, I mentioned, you will fall down, so that your body has to be prevented from falling down. So you will do that. Even to the extent, this cross extensor reflexes, they would go beyond the segment. This segment, they will also involve if you are touching a hot plate, you with your hand, what happens? You withdraw. So even if you are withdrawing this thing, there will be an extension of the other limb, the contralateral limb. Same thing may happen. You get a support from the lower extremity. Then comes the positive supportive response. The positive supportive response is also known as a magnet reaction. So this is the magnet reaction. So have anybody tried placing the fingers in the baby's hand, the infant? So then when you try to do that, the baby grasps, baby holds your finger firmly. This grasp reflex that holds it, this is a magnet reaction. That means it is trying to get a support. So that is the basis of the first primitive reflex. So this is a grasp reflex, or else another aspect that to support the body. What happens when we are getting the ground, when we touch the ground immediately, when something falls, or when you touch the ground, what happens? The proprioceptive inputs from the sole of the foot, and other joints, they reach and they will make it straight and pillar like. So this is known as a positive support response. That is how even this baby is trying to establish, because these things are established in us, but in the baby they are coming one by one. When this baby touches the ground here, these becomes erect. That means this becomes extended a pillar like. These are support responses. These are called a positive support response. The stimulus, so also known as a magnet reaction. The magnet reaction, I have said, trying to catch or hold. So when we are trying to falling down, something comes, we try to take the object in our hand. We try to have a protection. Suppose that is a natural response. So this is a positive support response. The stimulus for the positive support response is the pressure here, or a pressure here in the palm or a sole, and the tactile receptors, they will be activated. Other proprioceptive receptors are also activated, and they will produce the they will produce the response. The receptors are proprioceptors, then the efferents are the skin and the muscle and the joint afferents, that is mostly A beta and A delta fibers, and the center is in the spinal cord. The effect of this positive support response is extension of the part supported by the body. This is the extension of the part supported, and provide a rigid pillar-like structure. Here it will be firm, trying to get the finger in the hand. So that is what it is doing there. Now, suppose if we are thinking of the baby, he cannot sustain the same positive support response forever. So now what happens? The negative support response comes in. It leaves away. It becomes something like this. The opposite to the positive support response, this is a negative supporting response. It gives away the rigid stance. Whatever the rigid stance it has obtained, it gives away, and that becomes flexed and it takes away. Stimulus is again the proprioceptors or the stretch of the extensors. The receptors are proprioceptors, and The afferents are again the same skin and muscle joint afferents. The center is in the spinal cord. Here it is the release of supporting reaction and no longer supports the body weight. So now this no longer supports the body weight. So this is the negative supporting response. The segmental reflexes which support the posture is one, the stretch reflex which regulate the muscle tone. That is, muscle tone is an integral part of the posture regulating reflex. Then comes the crossed extensor reflex. A crossed extensor reflex provides the pillar-like structure when one side is being activated. So that means it restricts you or it prevents you from falling down. A third aspect is the positive support reaction. That means you are trying to hold on, or your limbs are trying to become a rigid pillar-like so that you can take a stance. And the negative support, because this excessive stimulation gives away, and the fall or no longer supports the things. That is the segmental reflexes which operate at the segmental level. Now comes the medullary tonic reflexes. Now we have the medullary tonic reflexes. We have tonic neck reflexes and tonic labyrinthine reflexes. Okay, so now the tonic neck reflexes operate from the movement of the head, either head turned to side or head turned up or head turned down. Then the limbs also change their attitude. Here I read, and I will explain further. Head turned to a side, the change, that means the one limbs changing that side will change, they will become extended and the other limbs become flexed. When it is up, the forelegs extend, hind legs flex. Rather than me telling about these things, look at this particular posture. Head turned to side. So now I have taken the baby here and I have made these limbs. This is jaw. This is jaw here, and this limb and this limb are known as jaw limbs. And this is skull. This is skull here, and these limbs on the opposite side are the skull limbs. Here, this is here jaw limbs, and this is skull, because the skull is here, the skull limbs. Okay, what happens when the head is turned to one side? Now head is turned here. You see this limb is extended. The other limb is flexed. You can just see that. And even this is also, lower limb is also extended. Both are extended. Both are extended on this side. And the jaw, skull limbs, what happens? They both are flexed. You see this man also trying to catch a ball there. And in this also, the one movement here, what he is trying to make, the side of the jaw here, the both limbs are extended. You just see that both are extended. And the skull, they are flexed. So now look back here, the head turned to a side, the jaw limbs extend, skull limbs flex. That is because of the tonic neck reflexes. Now, what is the stimulus here? It is the stretch of the neck muscles. And the receptors are proprioceptors of the neck and the joints, the neck joints. And the center is medulla, and the entire part, because it's in the medulla, entire part, the extensors and the flexors, are one side, they are activated. On this side, on the jaw side, they are activated. On the skull side, they are inhibited. That is what it produces the response. So there may be a question, jaw limb and the skull limb. Don't get confused. You can have these pictures in your mind. You can remember jaw limb, and this is jaw limb and this is skull limb. Okay, so now the second part of the tonic neck reflexes, because we have turned the head to either side, or one side, or this side, or that side. Suppose if I were to explain, suppose this man is making this side movement, these get extended and these get relaxed. If I turn the baby's head towards this side, they get extended. These limbs get extended and these limbs get flexed. So now come back here. Now with our movement is either upward movement or a downward movement. So the upward movement, you are trying to go on like this, head is turned up. So then what happens? You just see that forelimbs are extended and the hind limbs are flexed. You can just see that. When the baby's neck is turned, this is one of the tonic neck reflexes. Now, head turned down. So you just see that the head is turned down. When the head is turned down, so now what is happening? The forelimbs flex. This is forelimbs are flexing and hind limbs extend. Okay, so now you can just see that these reflexes, these tonic labyrinthine reflexes and the tonic neck reflexes exist even at the time of birth. So now in the birth time, this is the position that the baby have a flexion here and the extension of the lower limbs so that it can pass through the birth canal. So otherwise, if it extends like this, the delivery of the baby becomes difficult because it cannot pass through the birth canal because of the obstruction produced by the limb even to this thing. So that means it will be something like a spearheading, or that is these reflexes are present. These are known as a tonic neck reflexes. The stimulus is a stretch of the neck muscles. The receptor are located in the neck muscles and neck joints, joints of the neck around the neck. Then neck proprioceptors. The center is in the middle. Now, the medullary tonic reflexes. So we have seen this tonic neck reflexes. When we have also seen what happened when the head is turned to a side, and when the head is moved up, when the head is moved down. So I have summarized here. When turned to a side, there is a pattern of extensor. The jaw limb becomes extended and hind limbs, the skull limbs become flexed. Up movement, forelegs extend, hind legs flex. Down movements, forelegs flex, hind legs, the center is medulla. Now we go to the next stage, that is a tonic labyrinthine reflexes. So these labyrinthine means this is a vestibular system. The vestibular system have two semicircular canals and otolith organs. The otolith organs, they are the things wherein there are atoconia. They are semicircular canals or the canals. The otolith secule and the utricle. Secule and utricle. These otolith organs, they have those the hair cells, and over the hair cells there is a mucosal layer. The layer, and these are studded with the calcium deposits or calcium crystals. So that is why otolith, lith is a stone. The stone is calcium crystals. The otolith organs are the utricle and sacules. And change in what they do because of the gravity, these otolith organs are activated, and that would produce the change in the extensor or flexor activity of the limbs and bring about the posture. Let us see what they do there. Now, these are tonic labyrinthine reflexes. Dorsiflexion of the head. You just see that the upper and lower limbs extend. So if you are moving this head in this way, the otolith organ situated here, somewhere here within the bony canal there, in the ear temporal bone. So now these the secule and utricles, they will send information to the vestibular system, vestibular nerve. So then so what happens? This is turned here. and there is an extension of both the limbs. That's a dorsiflexion. This side, this is dorsiflexion. When there is a ventroflexion, this is ventroflexion. So this ventroflexion is again the you just see that there's a flexion attitude. There's a flexion attitude, and the ventroflexion, the head, upper and lower limbs flex. Everything is flexed. The stimulus is gravity. The receptor is otolith organs. I explained about otolith organs. Otolith organs are the utricle and saccule, and these utricle and saccule have the hair, typical hair cells, and in these hair cells there is a layer, mucus layer or a layer in which the calcium crystals are there, and these calcium crystals exert a gravitational activity on the or a gravitational attraction on the hair cells, and that would produce the response. So that the centers are there in the vestibular nucleus in the medulla. So that is the tonic labyrinthine reflexes. Now, coming back with the higher up, we go to the midbrain now. In the midbrain, we have a number of writing reflexes. What I am doing, I am taking the writing reflexes as a separate class. I just read out these writing reflexes, which I will deal in detail in my next class. Okay, so what are these midbrain? I will just read about these things. Midbrain reflexes, these are labyrinthine writing reflexes. These are writing reflexes originating from the otolith organs. That's the gravity, and it is the head positioning over the body, and the receptors are the otolith organs. The center is in the midbrain. The neck writing reflexes, so they are the stretch of the neck muscles. That means writing on the trunk, that is the thorax, shoulders, and the pelvis, and the muscle spindle. Muscle spindle is the receptors. The writing reflexes, if I were to define, these are the reflexes which maintain the position of the head and body in space. The positioning of the head and body in space is the writing reflex. So I am just RIGHTING, writing. That means orienting the head and body in space. Now, body writing reflexes, that means the body rides on the head. Body rides on the head and body rides on the body. The body writing reflexes, they are pressure on one side of the body, and they will try to make the head in a particular direction, on that direction of the body, and these are exteroceptors of the on that side of the body. That they again the center is in the midbrain. The body reflexes on the body. So that means when you are turning in the bed, you are turning from one side to the other side. These operate, and they will try to place your head and body together. Suppose if your head does not move when you are turning, you can understand the difficulty. So again, the receptors are the same. Then we have the optic writing reflexes. These are from the visual cues, and they will try to provide or orient the head in space in reference to body. And the receptors are rods and cones, and it is cerebral cortex. I will deal with the writing reflex separately in the next class. That's why I'm just mentioning them, briefing them about these reflexes. Then placement responses. This also I would deal along with that. Anyway, I mentioned these placement reactions are placing reactions and hopping reactions. I mentioned about the placing reactions when we are standing, where we try to place on one thing. So that means the support system I mentioned, when I am trying to go to a particular place and try to place on the steps. So then these placing reactions become, there will be a complex series of reflexes operating that involves the centered in the cerebral cortex, that is a somatosensory and motor cortex, especially area 5 and 7. They become the major areas for this this thing. And the receptors are located in the muscle spindle, and they will try to place the body in a particular positioning. Or hopping means suddenly changing, shifting the limb in one side. The animal or the person tries to take a stance because he does not want to fall down, and he jumps or he hops. These are placement responses. Now, I just mentioned vestibular placing reaction. The stimulus here is the linear acceleration from the otolith organs. The receptors are there in the utricle and saccule. The center is cerebral cortex. Response: as soon as foot comes to contact with any firm surface, it reflexively placed on the surface in a position to support the body. That's the response. This is vestibular component also. So now it's not only the vestibular component, it also gets the receptors from the foot, because the foot has to touch. So contact with any firm surface. So when it comes to a firm surface, the proprioceptive inputs, the tactile inputs, they reach, and in association with the otolith organs, that would be placement. So that is a vestibular placing reaction. Or visual placing reaction. We see the objects, that means taking the visual cues, and we see the objects and we place them. Suppose if I'm jumping from this thing, when I'm touching the ground, and we place, and then we try to make our foot to be landed on the land. So the response is, as soon as the foot comes in contact with any firm surface, it reflexively placed on the surface, so that a position of our position to support our body. These are visual placing reaction. And the hopping reaction, I was trying to, this is the lateral displacement while standing. If you are standing there and somebody pushes you, then the receptors are getting activated, and through the cortical centers, the hopping movement that keeps the limb in position to support the body. When standing, animal is pushed laterally. Suppose if I am pushed laterally, so I just try to react, and I just be firm with that particular push, lateral displacement. These are called hopping reactions. These are also some of those postural reflexes. Most of the things I have taken from Kendall's Neuroscience, and the some of the things I have concentrated from the Simpson Wright's Applied Physiology. I have also referred the Guyton's and Genong's textbook of physiology in explaining some of the concepts. Okay. Now, the assignment describe the various postural reflexes and the physiological basis associated with it. So that itself is I have given the table, and you can just bring it in, and write short notes on the positive supporting response, the magnet reaction, tonic labyrinthine reflexes, tonic neck reflexes, then brief answers on jaw limb, skull limb, the segmental reflexes supporting the posture, the crossed extensor reflex. Next class, we deal with the writing reflexes. Okay. Thank you.